Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another review. Today, we're going to be talking about the newest remake, Silent Night, Deadly Night. So, Silent Night, Deadly Night was a movie that came out in the 80s, and it was kind of this big controversial thing because it was about this Santa Claus that killed people and whatnot, and it was even on the poster as advertised as that. So, that kind of sparked this huge thing that parents were like, yeah, no. So, I think if I remember correctly, it only played in theaters for like a week, maybe 2 weeks before it was eventually pulled, and this is definitely more on the trashier side of those 80s slashers, and one that's just pure cheese, minus, even though the stuff that happens kind of in the beginning of the movie is kind of, pretty rough, but, in the end of the day, it's still like one of those just cheesy 80s slashers, and I absolutely adore the original one. It's one that I watch every Christmas Eve, along with like Black Christmas and a few other ones that is just I don't know why, but it just captures that Christmas spirit in a fucked up way. And as a big horror fan myself, it's a great blend of the two. I get a little bit of Christmas and a little bit of horror, but yeah, if you've never checked out the original one, it's one that you I wouldn't say you had to have nostalgia for, but if you're a big slasher fan like I am, I think you'll have an easier time kind of easing yourself into it than most people. I can easily see most people watching the original and being like, "What the hell is this? How is this considered good in any way, shape, or form?" Because I totally get it. Now, as going for the remake, when I heard that they were going to be redoing this movie, I was like, okay, that's easily something that could be improved on, or they could add their own spin to it, or anything like that. And I'm here to say that this remake is truly awesome. So, in the same vein as the original movie, this movie follows Billy, who witnesses his parents die by the hands of a guy dressed as Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, or Christmas, I think it's Christmas Eve. And throughout the years, he slowly kind of becomes more and more unhinged until something happens that kind of just sets him off, and he becomes this killer Santa. And that's really the plot of the original, because I don't want to give too much away about this new movie because they do some stuff differently that I'll get into, spoiler free, of course, that I don't want to give away too much of the plot details. So essentially, it's the same plot for both movies because it's just a remake, but I'm kind of tiptoeing around some of the plot details because I don't want to give too much away. So this film is directed by Mike P. Nelson. He's done a few other movies that I've really enjoyed. He did a segment in one of the VHS movies that I really liked. He's done the remake of the Wrong Turn movie, which I know a lot of people, for whatever reason, really just did not like, but I actually really enjoyed the remake. He also did the new Jason short film, for Sweet Revenge, the thing that they kind of partnered up with Angry Orchard to do, which I never got the chance to see, but now was completely wiped from the YouTube channel for whatever reason, so I don't know why or what's going on with that. That whole Jason universe thing is just a complete shit show of something that hopefully in due time it gets resolved, because I would like another Friday the 13th or something Jason related. But anyway, so I had no doubt as a director he was going to do a really good job with this movie, because like I said, I've enjoyed some of his other stuff. So I was also really curious what he was going to bring to the table. And I'm very pleasantly surprised. Like I said, this remake is really, really cool. It's done stuff in a completely different way while sticking to its original roots and paying homage to the original movie and adding in its own nods to other Christmas movies that in the process, that at least if I'm picking up on them correctly, I'm pretty sure there was a Black Christmas nod in here, which I thought was really cool. I think the acting overall is really done in this. I think Rohan Campbell does a really good job. When I first found out he was cast as this part, I was like, oh, he's perfect for that. He'll do a great job at that. I know there's a whole controversy that this guy ruined the Halloween franchise and all that stuff. While I think Halloween Ends is a odd movie in that trilogy, especially for a trilogy that's supposed to wrap everything up, I think Rohan Campbell still did a really good job with what he was given. I liked him a lot, and he was great in this movie, so I would like to see what he does later on in his career, or what he's got coming up next. I think in this movie he does a great job of playing this character that's kind of obviously on the psychotic side, but you find the sympathy for as the movie goes along, which I'll get into later on. But it has this, you can't help but to feel bad for him, and he plays almost like this tortured soul, and he does it so well that you really buy into his character, and you really buy into these things that he's feeling, where he wants to try to be normal at times and try to live a normal life and find these things that normal people have, but there's just something there that he cannot, you know, he cannot break away from who he is. And he does just a really good job of really capturing that and bringing that to screen. Honestly, I think really the entire cast does a really good job. Ruby Modine, that is also in the Happy Death Day, well, in the first Happy Death Day movie, I'm about to say movies, but she does a really good job. She works in this little shop that her dad owns that Billy eventually ends up getting a job at. And like this romance kind of sparks between them two, the two of them, and I think they have really good chemistry together. I really buy in. She's kind of got this thing about her as well that I don't want to spoil, that her character does a really good job of balancing both parts of that, where she's able to play super sweet and super just off the chain from time to time, just off the rails, and she's able to go there and you buy into both performances so well. And so she does a really good job. I think the actor David Lawrence Brown, who plays her dad, you really like him as well. There's something about his character that you're just like, I like this guy. Like, you're just drawn to him. You're like, man, I really like this guy. I hope everything works out and, nothing bad happens to these people. There's something really great about this movie that has a way of getting you connected to the characters that you normally wouldn't pull for. And it's so cool and a unique twist on the story that I think it's really awesome how they did that. And like I've been hinting at, this movie takes what the original did and completely changes it on how it goes about doing certain things. And I really love that. I really love that a remake can take that approach. I know when a lot of people, when a remake comes out, it's like, the original is just destroyed and gone forever. And that's never the case. If, you don't like the remake, guess what? The original still exists. You don't have to freak out that, that's like the originals are just gone. But in this case, I really enjoy both of these. I think I love the original for what it is, maybe because I have like nostalgia for it. But I really, really love what they were able to do with this movie and almost give it this unique twist and this unique take on everything, especially when it comes to the Billy character. And it honestly adds more of a layered story throughout it. And all I'm going to say is this movie feels like a mixture of, like, you take Silent Night, Deadly Night, and you take the movie Frailty, if you've never seen Frailty, Venom, and Dexter, the TV show Dexter, and just put them all in a blender together. This is your movie. And I can't really explain why, because I don't want to give anything away. But that was such a cool premise going into this. Like, as I was watching this movie, I was like, okay, this is definitely a hint of Dexter. And then I was like, okay, this has got like a Venom flavor to it. And then I was like, this has definitely got some little bit of Frailty in there. It was just awesome how they were able to take all that and blend it and make it work, especially for a movie like this. And it was just really, really cool how it was done. In this movie, too, they kind of give you a little bit more of a story. There is a little bit more of something for you to grasp onto than the original. Like I said, they do a really good job of making these characters characters that we normally wouldn't care about. You really care for them. Like, there's something in there that they do a really good job at. Where in the original, yeah, you cared for Billy, but you also had this thing where you're like, this guy's just nuts, which I understand why, given everything that he's been through, especially in the first one. They have more of a orphanage, the first one. The original one, they have more of a orphanage type thing that they kind of go off of for a little bit. This one does away with all that. There's no orphanage or anything like that in here. So how they go about that is a really cool way of how they twist that in there. In this movie, somebody, like I said, like Billy, for example, they do a great job of you feeling sympathetic towards this character. And as the movie goes on, you start to realize why. You're like, wow, I actually really care about this character. Or like I said in the first one, you're like, this is just a dumb slasher movie. I get why this kid is the way that he is, and that's it. There's no rhyme or reason to it. In this one, they do a really good job of not only making Billy, but the characters around him, like the people that work in the shop with him, like Ruby's character and her dad and all that stuff. They do a really good job of making you really just really care for them and really, really want them to. It's hard to talk about because I don't want to give anything away, but it's you really pull for them to kind of get out of certain situations. This movie also introduces another element that I think is really cool about this Snatcher character. It's like this character throughout the movie. He's not really talked about a lot, or he's just kind of hinted at through conversation, and you see flyers of kids missing. And that introduces this really cool dynamic that I think that the original didn't have. So not only do you have Billy's character that that we know from the original movie, but now you're introducing this whole other element of this kid, person taking kids and doing God knows what, and that just added this really cool dynamic because as the movie goes along, when it's introduced kind of in the beginning of the movie, you're kind of like, okay, clearly this is going to go somewhere and it's going to connect. And I'm very curious how their two characters are going to come together and meet each other. So that was a really cool dynamic that they added in that I really enjoyed. One other thing I really enjoyed was I like that this movie actually feels like Christmas. It has that ambiance of Christmas to it. It has that feel of, between the Christmas lights and the way that they did everything in the background. It genuinely feels like it's Christmas time and has that Christmas feel to it. And that's where I feel like a lot of movies kind of miss the mark, where they don't genuinely feel Christmassy, if that makes sense. Like there's some movies out there you watch that are supposed to be a Christmas movie, and you watch and you're like, I don't feel any Christmas ambiance here. It's the same with Halloween movies. There's some spooky and horror movies out there that's supposed to take place around Halloween or on Halloween, and none of them really have that ambiance to them. So you're kind of missing that element. In this movie, they do a really good job of just pimping it out like it's Christmas time, and they and they do it in such a good way that it genuinely feels like Christmas, and I really appreciated that. And it also has that warm, cozy vibe that Christmas movies do, while adding in this element of the serial killer. I really like the score and the music of this movie as well. There's something that they do with the score that intermingles some of the music from the original movie. At least I think it was from the original movie. It sounds like it's from the original movie. If it's not, they did a damn good job of coming very close to it. But they do a really good job of kind of intermingling that while also adding their own flavor to it, while also keeping that 80s synthy feeling that the original score had. There's just something in the music and the actual score of this movie that really feels it's got that 80s vibe to it. So you don't really lose a lot of, that 80s flavor, which I really appreciated. So it feels like a great mixture of something 80s and something modern, which they did a really good job of blending together. And as for the music, they do obviously there's Christmas music in this movie, but they do a really good job of again putting their own spin on it. There's parts where it'll be just a regular Christmas song, and it'll slowly dwindle down into something almost horrific, or it'll know when to fade out at certain times and kind of leave you in this quiet, somber thing where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. So it easily ratchets that suspense up for you. And I think it just does a really good job of combining the two together. It knows when to use the music, the score, and the silence. And it does a really good job of just blending all that together. And like I said, there's this element near the end of the movie in particular that really does a great job of building tension. And the way that it's done with lighting is really, really cool. There's a scene, without spoiling anything, where characters wind up at a particular place and it's just a bunch of shadows. Like the only light you see is really from a flashlight. So it's surrounded by shadows, and the way that it's done is really, really effective. And there's even a scene where you kind of see somebody almost come out of the darkness, almost like a Michael Myers thing in the original Halloween, how it just slowly comes into the light. Really effective and really, really well done stuff, and just really, really, really awesome all around, like how they were able to execute and pull all that off. And like I said earlier at the beginning of the review, there is some little Easter eggs to the original movie. Obviously, throughout the movie, there's a famous kill that's in the original movie. Obviously, that's, they pay homage to that. They also pay homage to, of course, the horrible second movie. There's a little wink and nod to that. And I think that there is a homage to the original Black Christmas as well. At least to me, I picked up on that. I could be reading way too much into it, but to me, there's a scene where Billy's on the phone and something is said, and I'm like, it's just real subtle. But to me, I was like, that was totally a Black Christmas reference. It has to be, but it could have just been a coincidence too. But I'm pretty positive that is easily a Black Christmas reference. But I thought all that was really cool, how they blended all that in. None of the homage moments or fan service moments, if you want to call them, none of that felt like it was forced. All of it felt really organic and really had a cool way of kind of intermingling with the story, so none of it felt like it was out of place or anything. So that was really, really cool. I do like how this movie adds more of a story than the original did. Like I said, the original one was very bare bones of a story. It was just, this kid going to, he sees his grandpa when he's young, and his grandpa tries to tell him that Santa Claus is, this being that, will easily punish you if you're not a good kid, and then all the stuff happens with his parents. Then he grows up in this orphanage, and so he's kind of unstable anyway, and that's kind of it. Then he just kind of snaps, and that's the thing. This movie adds more of a layered story, not only to his character, but like I said, for him wanting to be more of that human side of him, wanting him to find love and to be happy, and just to try to be a normal person. And they explore all that really well, while adding this thing about Billy's character in particular that I can't talk about, that is a really cool, unique thing that I think adds a whole different thing to this movie and makes it stand out. And not only that, the whole thing with the love story in this one, that is completely absent. That does not even exist in the original movie. And in this one, they add this love I want to say love triangle, but this love story throughout it with these two characters. And like I said, they do so well together. They have great chemistry. And I like that because that also adds this other element to the story that also makes you care about them at the end of the day. That there's just so much kind of layered to this story that they add on to, that makes you really care about the characters. And that was something completely absent from the first movie, or the original movie, which, I mean, again, the original movie knows what it is. And if you're going to make a remake, I feel like this is how you go about it. You take the original, but you add your own spin to it, and this is exactly what this did. They also do a cool spin on the whole victim side of it with the people that he goes after. Again, that's all I'm going to say about it, but it's really cool how they kind of go about that. And like I said, that kind of turns the whole movie on its head, and there is a particular scene that I did not see coming at all, that kind of just, came out of nowhere. That, be warned, if you're kind of looking around online and stuff, people has been posting what that scene is, or sometimes it's in the head of the reviews and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm so happy I didn't see that, because I would have been super pissed if I would have seen that before I went in. But not knowing that and having that completely unexpected for me, I was like literally at the theater just bruh watching that, because it was so awesome how it played out. And like I said, it was something totally unexpected. So kudos, massive kudos to Mike P. Nelson and the studio for that, because that was just really cool how they really pulled that off and how they really kept it. And it's a nice surprise overall. Now on to the things that I'm kind of mixed or in the negative about. There's really not a lot. Like I said, I had a really good time with this movie. And the thing is, though, when I found out this was Cineverse that was going to be making this movie, which is the studio behind Terrifier, I was like, oh yeah, dude, the kills are going to be, off the charts. That's not really the case with this movie. It's more of a, yes, there is some brutal kills in the movie, but at the same time, there's not really as many as you would expect. Because if you've seen the first one, it's like he just snaps and goes on this rampage of this. Like I've said before, this kind of takes a different turn and kind of goes in a twisty different direction. And with all that, it brings this kind of different dynamic to the kills. So while the kills that you do get in the movie, there is some that is pretty brutal, there is that missed element for me that I feel like we could have had a little bit more, and you could have done more with them. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it is cool how they go about them. The one scene in particular that I talked about just a second ago, about how it was a surprise segment for me, and I was, shocked that they got that in there. That was really cool how all that was executed and played out. But as somebody who loves this genre of like these slasher movies and always look forward to these really unique ways they can come up with killing people, I think this was the selfish part of me is kind of like, I feel like there could have been just a little bit more, but that's like I said, that's more of a nitpick than anything else. But like I said, the ones that we do get are really well done. And of course, like I said earlier, there is a nice homage to certain kills from the original that they bring back and put in here in a very different but original way. The only other thing I really have in here is that I really wish that character I talked about earlier of the Snatcher, I really wish we could have seen just a little bit more of that character. There was a little bit more I feel like they could have done with it, but I know that, like, this movie is kind of focusing on the whole new stuff and the new elements that they brought to Billy's character and that story overall, which is totally fine. But I feel like with this character being introduced, this is a character that you really, really want to see get his comeuppance along with other things. And while that is in there to an extent, and I feel like there's a part of that felt like a little bit anticlimactic, but nothing that really just completely destroys the movie by any means like that. It's just a little bit of a disappointment, but nothing major with that. I just feel like there would have been a little bit more interaction between the Billy character and that character kind of throughout. And maybe there is, maybe it's just you don't know about it. And I feel like there kind of is that with another character as well that I'm not going to talk about, but that could be part of that they introduced to kind of maybe have, what's the word, bridge the two together to where they kind of had that, but you just kind of didn't know about it at the time, which, I can see that. But, it's one of those things, like I said, it's just a nitpick for me, but other than that, this thing is awesome. So if you're in the Christmas spirit and you're looking for something like a little bit more horror related, I would definitely recommend checking this movie out. I had a really good time with it. It was a really fun blast. It takes that original concept and what a remake should do and completely takes it and twists it on its head and makes it its own thing while keeping true to the original flavor of the movie. And I really, really enjoyed that. And by all means, this is one that I highly recommend. And if you've never seen the first one or the original one, I would probably recommend this one. Might go over better for people than the original one did. Like I said, if you watch the original one now, having no like nostalgia ties to it or anything like that, you might just be like, this movie is terrible, which I completely understand. But I love the first one. So this one will go absolutely right next to the original one for me. So this will probably be a double bill for me that I'll watch from now on Christmas Eve and whatnot. So happy to add this one to the list. I love Christmas horror, so I'm happy we got another banger because there's a lot of terrible ones out there. So with that being said, definitely check this movie out if you have the time to see it in the theater. I think it will be on Screambox at some point because Cineverse and Screambox kind of have a deal with going. If you haven't heard about Screambox, it's like $5 a month, and they got a ton of original horror on there, plus a lot of classic stuff. And no, I'm not sponsored by Screambox, but that would be awesome. So just know who you are going into it, and honestly, I would say I would recommend watching both of them just to see where you kind of fall on the radar of the original and this one. So, but that's just me. Thank you, everybody. That's my review for the new Silent Night, Deadly Night remake. If this is the review you're finding me on, please come on over and check out all my other 2025 reviews so far. I've got a pretty good amount built up now, so I'd love to have you over there. And before I go, I'd like to know in the comments, what are all of your favorite Christmas horror movies? If there's any out there that you really enjoy, that you would recommend, I happily will take recommendations. There's quite a few out there that I still have not seen. There's one that gets brought up every year called Rare Exports that I really, really want to check out this year. So I'll hopefully have that in the bag. So hopefully I'll be able to do that this year. I'm really hoping so. But what is your favorite Christmas horror movies? What do you think of Silent Night, Deadly Night, the original? And if you have seen the remake, please let me know what you think of the remake as well. I'm very curious. But thank you, everybody. Thanks for checking in and hanging out as always. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you beautiful people in the next one. Thank you so much.